She had no idea that the man she was about to defend was carrying evidence that would bring down the biggest police corruption scandal in Georgia's history. Dawn breaks over Milfield, Georgia. Ruby Washington flips the worn "Open" sign at her corner diner, hands trembling slightly. Not from the morning chill, but from the eviction notice crumpled deep in her apron pocket. 30 days. That's all she has left. Across the street, chaos erupts. 4 patrol cars surround a lone motorcycle like wolves circling prey. The rider, a massive Hell's Angel in full leather, stands beside his Harley with hands raised. But something's wrong. The officers are screaming contradictory commands, weapons drawn, radios mysteriously silent. "Get down! Hands up! Don't move!" The biker refuses to comply with the chaos. "I know my rights!" he shouts back. Ruby's seen police stops before. This isn't one of them. This is something far more dangerous. By tomorrow morning, her quiet diner will become the center of the most unexpected gathering this small town has ever seen. But Ruby's morning was about to become the most dangerous and important day of her life. Ruby Washington has poured 15 years into Ruby's corner diner. 15 years of 5 a.m. wake-ups, burned fingers, and empty tables. 15 years of believing that hard work and good intentions could build something lasting. She was wrong. The eviction notice feels like a stone in her apron pocket. 30 days to vacate. Milfield Development Corporation wants her corner for luxury condos, and her life's work means nothing to their lawyers. Ruby traces the cracked vinyl of Booth 3, where her husband Jerome proposed all those years ago. "This place will be our legacy," he'd whispered, flower in her hair, hope in both their hearts. The faded photo behind the register captures that moment. Opening day, 2010, 2 dreamers who believed love and hard work could conquer anything. Jerome died believing that lie. Now Ruby fights alone against forces that don't care about dreams or legacies or the elderly man who comes here every Tuesday just to remember what conversation feels like. Old man Fletcher shuffles through the door, same time as always. His wife died last spring, and Ruby's coffee is the only warmth left in his world. He settles into booth 3 without speaking. Ruby pours without asking. Some conversations happen in silence. At the counter, 17-year-old Maria spreads homework across the cracked formica. Her apartment has no quiet space, no internet, no hope. But here, surrounded by the gentle hum of the coffee machine and Ruby's soft humming, calculus makes sense. These aren't customers. They're family. Ruby's chosen family. The bell chimes with the sharp aggression of forced entry. Mayor Patricia Hayes sweeps in like a perfectly dressed storm, followed by her usual parade of yes-men. Ruby's stomach drops. These visits never bring mercy. "Ruby, darling." Patricia's smile could cut glass. Still fighting the inevitable? The generous offer, 40 cents on the dollar for property worth millions. Ruby straightens her shoulders, drawing strength from Jerome's memory. "This place isn't for sale." "Oh, honey." Patricia's laugh carries the cruelty of absolute power. "You're fighting forces you can't possibly understand. Progress doesn't negotiate." She leans closer, voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carries more threat than shouting. "Some people in this town are growing very impatient with obstacles." The words hang in the air like smoke. Ruby's noticed the pressure campaign, surprise health inspections, mysterious parking tickets on customers' cars, suppliers suddenly hiking prices. Someone powerful wants her gone. 30 days, Ruby. Don't make this harder than necessary. After they leave, Ruby collapses against the counter. Every muscle aches with exhaustion that goes deeper than bone. She's fought for this place through Jerome's cancer, through the highway rerouting that killed her foot traffic, through every setback life could throw. But she's tired. Soul deep, heart weary, tired. Her daughter Jasmine calls from Atlanta, same conversation every week. "Mama, just take their money. Move in with us. You're killing yourself for a building." Jasmine doesn't understand. This isn't just a building. It's where Fletcher finds human connection. It's where Maria escapes chaos. It's where the night shift nurses know they'll find hot coffee and someone who cares at 3 a.m. Ruby counts yesterday's earnings, $43. Barely enough for groceries, nowhere near enough for rent. The arithmetic of failure written in crumpled bills and scattered coins. She looks at the framed newspaper clipping from last Christmas. Local hero feeds homeless during ice storm. She'd served free meals for 3 days, using her own grocery money, believing community mattered more than profit. The community remembered for exactly one news cycle. Outside, sirens wail in the distance, growing closer. Ruby moves to the window, watching as more patrol cars race past than she's ever seen at once. Something big is happening in their quiet town. She doesn't know that across town, Detective Tom Morrison, 18 months deep undercover with the Hells Angels, has just photographed Captain Reese accepting drug money from cartel leaders. She doesn't know that Tom carries evidence that will destroy a corruption network reaching from street dealers to the mayor's office. She doesn't know that those sirens are hunting a federal agent who holds the key to justice in a town that's forgotten what justice looks like. Ruby only knows that her coffee needs refilling and her world is ending in 30 days. In 10 minutes, she'll face a choice between safety and courage. In 11 minutes, she'll discover that sometimes the smallest acts of defiance create the biggest changes. The bell jingles as Fletcher waves goodbye. "See you tomorrow, Ruby girl." "God willing," Ruby whispers, not knowing how those words will prove prophetic. Outside, the sirens grow louder. Through her window, Ruby sees the confrontation beginning across the street. Her heart starts racing. She's about to step into a story much bigger than eviction notices, much more dangerous than empty tables, and much more important than she could ever imagine. What Ruby witnessed next would force her to make a choice between her safety and her conscience, a choice that would change everything. The confrontation across the street explodes into pure chaos. 4 patrol cars form an aggressive perimeter around a lone Hells Angel, but something's terribly wrong. This isn't standard police procedure. This is a coordinated attack. Sergeant Bradley leads the assault, weapon drawn, screaming contradictory commands that make no tactical sense. "Hands up! Get down! Don't move!" Behind him, officers Martinez, Collins, and Reeves spread out with military precision, but their faces show desperation, not authority. Their radios sit silent on their shoulders, a violation of every protocol Ruby knows. The biker is massive, intimidating, wearing full Hells Angels colors. His vest reads Diesel in bold letters. Despite 4 weapons trained on him, he keeps his voice steady, hands visible, trying to de-escalate. "Officers, I haven't broken any laws," Diesel calls out. "My bike's registered. I wasn't speeding. What's the probable cause?" "Shut your mouth!" Bradley screams, advancing with the desperation of a cornered animal. "You're under arrest for suspicion of drug trafficking." Ruby's blood turns to ice. She's lived here 30 years, knows every cop on this force. Bradley's behavior is unhinged, frantic, and she notices something that chills her. His radio is deliberately turned off. "What drugs?" Diesel demands, hands still raised. "Search me. Search for my bike. You won't find anything." "We don't need to find anything," Martinez snarls, moving closer. "We know what you're carrying." The words hit Ruby like a physical blow. They already know what they're looking for. This isn't about catching a criminal. It's about silencing one. Diesel slowly reaches toward his vest pocket. "I have documentation that explains—" "Gun! He's reaching for a gun!" Bradley screams. Ruby watches the lie unfold in horrifying slow motion. Diesel's hand moves toward a clearly visible document pocket, nowhere near a weapon. But Bradley uses the fabricated excuse to rush forward, taser drawn. That's when Diesel's folder falls open, spilling contents across the asphalt. Ruby's heart stops. Federal seals, FBI letterhead, DEA case numbers, surveillance photographs of people she recognizes, including Mayor Hayes and several local officers. He's not just a biker. He's federal law enforcement, and local cops are trying to kill him. "Officer, wait!" Ruby bursts through her diner door, her voice cutting through the morning chaos. "That man's not reaching for a weapon. Ma'am, step back immediately." Bradley spins toward her, the taser now pointed in her direction. "This is official police business. I can see what he was reaching for." Ruby stands her ground, pointing at the scattered papers. "Those are federal documents! This man's law enforcement!" "He's a terrorist," Bradley interrupts frantically, sweat pouring down his face despite the cool morning. "A dangerous gang member. You're interfering with a counter-terrorism operation." Ruby stares at Bradley, seeing naked panic in his eyes. Behind him, Martinez whispers urgently into a personal cell phone. Not his police radio, but a private device. "Ma'am," Diesel calls out carefully, never taking his eyes off the officers. "Please call the FBI field office in Atlanta. Ask for Agent Sarah Carter. Tell her Detective Morrison needs immediate federal assistance." "Detective!" Ruby's eyes widened. "He's lying!" Bradley shouts. "Classic gang manipulation tactics." But Ruby's looking at those scattered papers, seeing official case numbers, federal surveillance photos, evidence logs documenting systematic corruption. Her mind races, connecting dots she never wanted to see. "Those documents," she says slowly, her voice growing stronger. "They're evidence of local corruption, aren't they?" Diesel nods grimly. 18 months of investigation, photos, recordings, financial records, everything needed to expose the network. Bradley's face goes ashen. "Lady, you don't understand the forces you're dealing with. Walk away, right now." "No." Ruby's voice carries the strength of 15 years building community trust. "I understand exactly what I'm dealing with. You're corrupt officers trying to destroy evidence that exposes your crimes." "Last warning," Martinez growls, approaching with handcuffs. "Obstruction of justice is a federal felony." Ruby looks at the scattered evidence, 18 months of dangerous undercover work about to be destroyed by the very corruption it was meant to expose. She thinks about Jerome, about the kind of person he'd want her to be at this moment. "Then arrest me," she says firmly, stepping closer to Diesel, "because I'm not moving until Agent Carter arrives." What Ruby doesn't know is that 17-year-old Carlos Rivera is live-streaming everything from his bedroom window, broadcasting to his 50,000 TikTok followers. What she doesn't know is that Agent Carter received Diesel's panic signal 20 minutes ago and is already en route. What she's about to discover is that choosing justice over safety will bring protection beyond anything she could imagine and make her the most important witness in the biggest corruption case in Georgia history. But Ruby's defiance was just the beginning. What happened next would shock everyone present. Ruby plants herself between Diesel and 4 loaded weapons, her small frame dwarfed by the chaos but her presence undeniable. The morning air crackles with tension so thick it's hard to breathe. "I said I'm not moving until the FBI arrives," Ruby declares, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Ma'am, you're making a fatal mistake," Officer Collins starts. "The only mistake here is yours," Ruby cuts him off, pointing at the scattered federal documents. "That man has official credentials and you're trying to destroy evidence." Behind the officers, doors open along Main Street. Shop owners peer out cautiously. Mrs. Carter from the flower shop holds her phone up, recording. Carlos Rivera's live stream viewer count hits 15,000 and climbing fast. "Turn off those cameras!" Martinez barks, desperation creeping into his voice. "First Amendment, officer," Carlos calls from his window. "Public street, public business." Ruby feels the momentum shifting. What started as 4 cops versus 1 federal agent is becoming the community versus corruption. She presses her advantage. "Detective Morrison," she calls out to Diesel, using the name he'd mentioned. "Are you carrying federal identification?" "Yes, ma'am." Diesel moves with deliberate care, telegraphing every motion to avoid spooking the increasingly unstable officers. "DEA task force working joint operations with the FBI." He produces a leather wallet, flips it open to reveal a federal badge and official identification. The growing crowd murmurs. Phone cameras zoom in for closer shots. Bradley realizes he's completely lost control of the narrative. "Those are sophisticated counterfeits!" Bradley shouts, voice cracking with panic. "We've been tracking this terrorist cell for months!" "Then prove it," Ruby challenges, pulling out her own phone. "Call your dispatcher. Have them verify his credentials through federal databases." Bradley's radio remains conspicuously silent. Martinez continues his frantic, whispered conversation in his personal cell. Collins and Reeves exchange nervous glances. Clearly, they weren't fully briefed on whatever conspiracy they've stumbled into. "I can call the DEA myself," Ruby offers, fingers poised over her phone screen. "What's their verification number?" "Don't you dare!" Bradley reaches for her phone. "Officer." Diesel's voice cuts through the chaos with sudden, unmistakable authority. 18 months of undercover work falls away like a discarded costume, revealing the federal agent underneath. "You are interfering with an active federal investigation. Stand down immediately." "We don't recognize your authority," Martinez snarls, but his confidence wavers as more neighbors emerge from their homes and businesses. You will when my backup arrives. Diesel checks his watch with practiced calm. Agent Carter should be here in 12 minutes, along with federal marshals, internal affairs investigators, and probably news crews once this video goes national. As if summoned by his words, Carlos shouts from his window, "Yo, we just hit 20,000 live viewers. This is blowing up everywhere." Ruby watches Bradley's desperation reach a breaking point. She recognizes the look, the same expression she'd seen in desperate men who'd threatened Jerome during his final illness. Cornered animals are always most dangerous. "Detective Morrison," she says carefully, "how long have you been working this case?" 18 months undercover. Infiltrated the Serpientes cartel operation through motorcycle club connections. I have documented evidence of the entire corruption network." Diesel's voice carries the weight of exhaustion and determination. Mayor Hayes, Captain Reese, 6 officers, 2 city council members, the district attorney's office, all compromised. The crowd gasps audibly. Ruby sees neighbors she's known for decades processing the revelation that their local government is fundamentally corrupt. "That's impossible," Mrs. Carter whispers. "Mayor Hayes donated to our church renovation." "Corruption hides behind charity," Ruby replies grimly. "It always does." That's when Bradley makes his desperate move. "Enough!" He raises his weapon toward the crowd of civilians. "Everyone back up! This is a matter of national security!" "No!" Ruby steps forward instead of retreating. "This is local corruption, and you're threatening innocent people to cover it up. Lady, I will shoot. You'll shoot an unarmed woman for protecting federal evidence?" Ruby's voice grows stronger with each word. "In front of 50 witnesses recording everything?" She turns to address the growing crowd directly. "How many of you have noticed strange things lately? Parking tickets appearing on cars outside local businesses, health inspectors suddenly finding problems they never found before, permits getting delayed for months while chain stores sail through approval?" Murmurs of recognition ripple through the crowd like wildfire. Ruby sees the moment when individual frustrations connect into a larger, uglier pattern. "This man," she points to Diesel, "has evidence of all of it. 18 months of photographs, recordings, financial records proving our town has been sold to criminals." "You have no idea what forces you're dealing with," Martinez hisses. "These people have reached beyond this pathetic little town." "Then it's time we had some reach of our own," Ruby shoots back. She turns to Carlos. "How many people are watching now?" 25,000 and exploding. Comments are going crazy. People saying they're driving here from Atlanta, Birmingham, Nashville. Local news stations are getting tagged." Bradley looks around wildly, finally understanding that his small-town cover-up is becoming a national scandal in real time. His radio suddenly crackles to life, but it's not his dispatcher. "This is Agent Sarah Carter, Federal Bureau of Investigation. I am 90 seconds out with federal marshals and internal affairs investigators. All local officers will holster weapons immediately and await federal instruction." The 4 officers freeze like statues. Bradley's weapon wavers uncertainly. Martinez drops his cell phone, the plastic clattering on asphalt. The conspiracy they thought they could contain with violence and intimidation has exploded beyond any hope of control. Ruby steps closer to Diesel, close enough to speak quietly while keeping her eyes on the increasingly desperate officers. "You okay, Detective?" "Better now, thanks to you," he replies, voice soft with genuine gratitude. "What you did here, most people would have stayed inside, watched through the windows. Most people don't run diners in neighborhoods where looking away means watching them die," Ruby says simply. Then, studying his face, she sees something beyond relief. Profound exhaustion mixed with surprise. 18 months undercover must have been hell. "You have no idea." Diesel's voice is barely a whisper. "I started to forget what it felt like when someone chose right over safety." Ruby hears the pain underneath his words, imagines the soul-crushing loneliness of pretending to be someone else for a year and a half, surrounded by criminals and corruption, never knowing who to trust. "Well," she says simply, "you're not alone anymore." As black federal vehicles surround the scene with military precision, Ruby realizes she's just stepped into something much larger than a police stop. She's become the catalyst for justice in a town that had forgotten what justice looked like. What she doesn't know is that Detective Tom Morrison will never forget the woman who risked everything to protect his investigation. And tomorrow, when the corruption arrests begin, he'll make sure Ruby Washington gets protection beyond anything she could imagine. As FBI agents swarmed the scene, Ruby had no idea that her courage had just made her the most important witness in federal custody, and the biggest target in Georgia. Agent Sarah Carter arrives like a force of nature. Black SUVs screech to a halt. Federal marshals pour out with tactical precision, enough firepower to make Bradley's small-town corruption look pathetic. She's Asian American, early 40s, with the bearing of someone who's dismantled cartels and intimidated by nothing. "Detective Morrison," she calls out, approaching Diesel with visible relief. "Status report. Evidence secured, Agent Carter. 18 months of documentation intact." Diesel gestures to the scattered papers now being carefully photographed and collected by federal crime scene technicians. Local PD attempted to destroy the investigation. This civilian prevented them from succeeding. Agent Carter turns to Ruby with professional respect that somehow feels warmer than any praise she's ever received. "Ma'am, I'm Agent Carter, FBI. What you did here likely saved a federal investigation worth 2 years of work and millions in resources." "I just did what anyone should do," Ruby replies, suddenly feeling overwhelmed as the magnitude crashes over her. Around them, Bradley and Martinez are being read their rights by federal marshals, handcuffed with the same equipment they'd planned to use on an innocent man. "Ma'am, with respect, 99% of people don't do what you did." Agent Carter's voice carries warmth beneath the authority. "You stood up to armed, desperate officers who were clearly willing to commit violence. That takes extraordinary courage." Ruby watches Carlos still live streaming from his window, viewer count approaching 40,000. News vans are arriving like vultures to fresh roadkill. Her quiet Tuesday morning confrontation is becoming a national story, whether she wants it or not. "Agent Carter," Ruby asks quietly, "how much danger am I in now?" The FBI agent's expression grows grave. "We'll be executing arrest warrants throughout the day. Mayor Hayes, Captain Reese, several others. But the Serpientes cartel has significant reach and zero tolerance for witnesses. You're now a key federal witness, which means they'll want me dead," Ruby finishes bluntly. "We can provide protection, safe house relocation, new identity if necessary." Ruby thinks about her diner, her community, the life she spent 15 years building one relationship at a time. For how long? Until all trials conclude. Could be 18 months, maybe longer. The weight settles on Ruby's shoulders like lead. She stood up for justice, and now justice demands she abandon everything she's fought to protect. The irony tastes bitter. Detective Morrison approaches, no longer playing the Diesel character. The fake beard is gone, revealing a younger face than she'd expected, mid-30s with kind eyes that look decades older. The transformation is startling. "Mrs. Washington," he says formally, "I owe you a debt I can never repay." "Without your intervention, you don't owe me anything," Ruby interrupts. "You spent 18 months risking your life to expose corruption that's been poisoning this town. I spent 18 minutes standing on a street corner. We're not even close to even—" "Ma'am, those 18 minutes saved 18 months of work, and probably saved my life." Morrison's voice carries emotion he's clearly not used to expressing. These officers weren't planning a standard arrest. They were planning something permanent. Ruby feels ice in her veins despite the warming sun. She'd sensed desperation in Bradley's eyes, but she hadn't fully grasped how far corrupt cops might go to protect themselves. Agent Carter returns with paperwork and a grim expression. "Mrs. Washington, we need your full statement, and we strongly recommend protective custody until—" "No!" Ruby's voice is steel. "I won't be run out of my town by criminals wearing badges. Ma'am, this isn't negotiable. You're a federal witness now. These people kill witnesses. Then protect me here, in my community, in my diner." Ruby looks at the crowd of neighbors still gathered, at Carlos broadcasting to the world, at the news crews documenting everything. "I won't abandon the people who need this place." Morrison pulls out his phone, makes a brief call. Ruby catches fragments. "Need immediate Brotherhood response. Federal witness protection. Full deployment authorized." When he hangs up, Morrison's expression is determined but mysterious. "Mrs. Washington, How do you feel about having some very unconventional bodyguards? Ruby doesn't understand what he means. She will tomorrow morning when 312 motorcycles roll into Milfield, carrying the most unprecedented witness protection detail in federal law enforcement history. That evening, as Ruby prepared to close, she had no idea that her simple act of kindness was about to trigger the most extraordinary 24 hours of her life. The FBI processes the scene with methodical efficiency. Bradley, Martinez, and 2 other officers vanish into federal custody. News helicopters circle Mayor Hayes' office like vultures. Ruby's quiet Tuesday has become a federal case study. As evening falls, the media circus disperses. Agent Carter assigns 2 federal marshals to watch Ruby's diner overnight, but Ruby insists on staying in her apartment above the restaurant rather than entering witness protection. "Mrs. Washington," Agent Carter warns, "the cartel will have your identity within hours. These people eliminate threats without hesitation." "Then they'll learn I don't scare easily," Ruby replies, though her hands shake as she locks the diner door. Alone upstairs, Ruby finally processes the day's chaos. She thinks about Detective Morrison, how convincingly he'd played the Hell's Angel role, how much courage 18 months undercover must have required. She wonders about his real life, whether anyone knows what he sacrificed for justice. Around 9 p.m., her phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for today. What you did changed everything. Sleep well. You're safer than you know." TM. How did he get her number? And what did he mean about being safer than she knows? Through her window, Ruby notices something strange. Motorcycles keep passing through town, not racing, just riding slowly, deliberately, like they're patrolling. She counts 6 different bikes over an hour, all with serious-looking riders scanning the streets. At 11 p.m., another text arrives. Brotherhood never forgets. Brotherhood always protects. DM. Different initials, but the tone suggests connection to Morrison. Ruby peers outside again and sees 2 bikers parked across the street, engines off, just watching. When a sedan with out-of-state plates slows near her building, one biker immediately starts his engine and follows until it leaves town. Unauthorized security? Her phone rings. Agent Carter sounds puzzled. "Mrs. Washington, are you aware of motorcycle activity around your location?" "I see them. Should I be worried?" "We didn't authorize additional protection, but they're not breaking laws. Just watching. Highly irregular." After the call, Ruby checks her window again. The bikers remain, and now she notices something impossible. They're wearing different club colors. Hell's Angels, Iron Horsemen, Bandidos, clubs that supposedly hate each other, all apparently coordinating. How did Detective Morrison arrange this? What connections does an undercover federal agent have with rival motorcycle clubs? Ruby realizes tomorrow will bring answers to questions she didn't know she should ask. What she doesn't realize is that those answers will transform her understanding of justice, brotherhood, and the extraordinary lengths some people will go to protect those who protect them. What Ruby discovered the next morning would shatter everything she thought she knew about the man she'd saved. Ruby wakes to a sound she's never heard before. The rumble of hundreds of motorcycle engines all arriving at once. From her apartment window, she watches in complete amazement as an army of bikers rolls into Milfield like something out of an epic movie. They come from every direction, north from Atlanta, south from Macon, east from Augusta, west from Columbus. Hell's Angels, Bandidos, Outlaws, Iron Horsemen, Mongols, clubs that are supposed to be mortal enemies, riding together in perfect military formation. By 6 a.m., when Ruby comes downstairs to open the diner, her entire block has been transformed. 312 motorcycles line the streets with precision that would make the army jealous. The riders stand in disciplined groups, all colors and patches unified by a single purpose she doesn't yet understand. The diner door chimes and Detective Morrison enters. But he's different again. Yesterday he was Diesel the biker, then Tom the federal agent. Today he carries himself with unmistakable command authority that makes the bikers outside snap to attention as he passes. "Morning, Ruby," he says, settling into a booth with the confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Hope you don't mind, but I called in some favors." "Some favors?" Ruby stares out at the sea of leather and chrome stretching for blocks. "There are hundreds of people out there. 312, actually. and they're here because of what you did yesterday. Morrison pulls out an official folder with government seals. Ruby, I need to tell you who I really am. He slides a business card across the table. Ruby reads it twice before the words penetrate. Thomas Morrison, Director, Multi-Agency Gang Task Force, Department of Justice. I don't understand, Ruby whispers, her world tilting sideways. Oh, Ruby, I don't just work undercover with motorcycle clubs. I run the federal program that coordinates with them. Morrison's voice is patient, but carries the weight of absolute authority. For the past 5 years, I've been building strategic relationships with MCs across the Southeast, using their intelligence networks to fight cartel operations, human trafficking, and systematic corruption. Ruby's mind reels like she's been hit by lightning. You're saying these motorcycle clubs work with the government? Not officially, never officially. But the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and Mexican cartels are everyone's enemy. Morrison gestures toward the window where hundreds of bikers maintain perfect discipline. These clubs hate the Serpientes more than they hate each other. The cartels move drugs through their territories, corrupt their local police, destroy their communities. So yesterday you saved 18 months of the most ambitious anti-corruption operation in Department of Justice history. Operation Clean Sweep has been building cases in 12 states simultaneously. What you witnessed, dirty cops trying to silence me, that was just the Milfield cell of a network reaching from Miami to Memphis. Ruby sits down heavily, overwhelmed. How many people are involved? In corruption? Over 200 arrests planned across 4 states starting this morning. Mayors, police chiefs, district attorneys, judges, city council members, cartel operators, the entire network. Morrison's expression grows deadly serious. And they know you're the witness who can tie it all together. That's why, Ruby gestures toward the bikers outside. That's why I called in every favor I've earned in 5 years of building trust with these organizations. Ruby, what you did yesterday proves something these men and women value above everything else: loyalty, honor, standing up for what's right, even when it's dangerous. As if summoned by his words, the diner door opens. A massive man enters. 6'5", all full beard, Hell's Angels colors, arms covered in tattoos that tell stories of violence and brotherhood. Behind him comes a smaller woman in Bandito's leather, then a Hispanic man in Iron Horseman gear. Natural enemies, walking together like old friends. Mrs. Washington, the Hell's Angel says with formal respect. I'm Marcus, president of the Atlanta Charter. This is Rosa from Birmingham, Carlos from Jacksonville. We're here representing the Brotherhood. Brotherhood? Ruby asks, feeling like Alice tumbling down the rabbit hole. In our world, Rosa explains, her voice surprisingly gentle, when someone protects family, they become family. Yesterday, you protected one of ours. Today, we protect you. Carlos nods gravely. The cartels think they can intimidate witnesses, corrupt local law enforcement, control territory through fear and money. They don't understand that some things matter more than drugs or profit or power. Like what? Ruby asks. Like honor, Marcus replies simply. Like loyalty, like making sure people who do right don't suffer for it. Morrison pulls out his phone, shows Ruby a map dotted with red pins across the Southeast. Each pin represents coordinated arrests happening right now. Atlanta, Birmingham, Memphis, Nashville, Jacksonville, New Orleans. The entire Serpientes network is being dismantled simultaneously. The evidence I gathered in Milfield was the keystone connecting all the other investigations, he continues. Without yesterday's intervention, the whole operation would have collapsed like a house of cards. Ruby stares at the map, trying to comprehend the scope. All of this because I stood up to some dirty cops. All of this because you proved that courage and integrity still exist, Morrison corrects. Ruby, do you understand what message this sends? A black woman in small-town Georgia takes on corrupt police to protect a federal investigation, and motorcycle clubs from 6 states drop everything to ensure she's protected. The story's already viral again, Rosa adds, showing her phone. Yesterday's live stream hit 3 million views overnight. #Ruby's stand is trending worldwide. But the real story, Marcus says quietly, is what happens next. Because this isn't just about protecting one witness. This is about proving that justice can work, that communities can fight back against corruption, that ordinary people can change the world. Ruby looks around her small diner at the federal task force director, at the motorcycle club presidents, at the hundreds of bikers outside, and realizes her life has become something far bigger than she ever imagined. "So what happens now?" she asks. Morrison smiles. "Now we show the world what justice looks like when good people refuse to back down." But Morrison's plan for Ruby was bigger than protection. It was a complete transformation that would make her the center of the most innovative community justice program in American history. Morrison spreads official documents across Ruby's worn table while outside. The organized precision of 300-plus bikers continues. Federal agents coordinate with club presidents, news crews interview witnesses, and Ruby's small corner of Georgia has become the epicenter of the largest anti-corruption operation in state history. "Ruby," Morrison begins, "yesterday you proved something I've been trying to demonstrate for 5 years. That community policing works when the community has real partners they can trust." He slides over an official Department of Justice proposal thick with government seals. This is the Community Justice Initiative, a pilot program that would make Milfield the first town in America to implement cooperative security partnerships between federal law enforcement, local community leaders, and reformed motorcycle clubs. Ruby squints at the dense legal language. What does that mean in plain English? It means instead of hiding from corruption, we're going to make corruption impossible. Morrison's eyes light with genuine excitement. "Ruby, what if every neighborhood had people like these bikers, people who live by unbreakable codes of honor, who protect the innocent, who absolutely cannot be bought, working alongside federal agents to ensure justice? You want motorcycle gangs to become police? Not the police, community guardians. The clubs would provide intelligence networks, protection for witnesses, and a rapid response to threats that local police can't or won't handle." Morrison taps the document. "All coordinated through a community center that serves as neutral ground for all parties." Ruby realizes exactly where this is heading. My diner. Not just your diner expanded into a full community justice center. Restaurant, meeting space, coordination hub, safe haven for witnesses and victims. Morrison pulls out detailed architectural plans. The Department of Justice has allocated $3.2 million for the pilot program. You'd be the executive director. Director of what, exactly? Community relations, witness protection, crisis intervention, conflict resolution. Morrison's voice grows serious. "Ruby, you've spent 15 years building trust in this community. You know everyone, understand their struggles, see through their facades to their hearts. Those are exactly the skills we need." Agent Carter enters, followed by several federal officials Ruby doesn't recognize. "Mrs. Washington, I hope Detective Morrison is explaining why this proposal is revolutionary." "Revolutionary how?" Ruby asks. "Traditional witness protection isolates people, removes them from their communities, makes them disappear into anonymity," Carter explains. "This model protects them in place, surrounded by support networks that cannot be infiltrated or corrupted." One of the officials, Deputy Director James Wright from Washington, sits across from Ruby with the bearing of someone who shapes national policy. "Mrs. Washington, what you did yesterday shouldn't be extraordinary. Citizens should feel safe standing up to corruption, but in too many communities they don't because they know local law enforcement can't protect them from retaliation. So, instead of fixing local law enforcement," Ruby begins, "we supplement it with community-based alternatives that cannot be bought, intimidated, or corrupted," Wright finishes. "The motorcycle clubs have codes of honor that are actually more reliable than some police departments." Through the window, Ruby watches the bikers organizing themselves into security perimeters, coordinating with federal agents like they've done this before. Despite their intimidating appearance, their behavior is disciplined, professional, respectful. "What about the community?" Ruby asks. "Milfield isn't exactly diverse in its acceptance of people who look different." Marcus, the Hells Angels president, overhears from a nearby table. "Ma'am, respect isn't about how someone looks, it's about how they act. Yesterday you acted with honor. Today we act with honor. People recognize real character when they see it." As if to prove his point, Old Man Fletcher enters the diner, approaches Marcus without hesitation. "You boys planning to stay long?" "As long as Mrs. Washington needs protection, sir," Marcus replies with genuine respect. "Good." Fletcher's weathered face cracks a smile. About time someone around here stood up to the mayor's corruption. You need anything, coffee, directions, whatever, you just ask. Ruby watches this exchange in amazement. Fletcher, conservative and set in his ways, treating a heavily tattooed biker with natural courtesy based solely on character. The pilot program includes comprehensive benefits, Morrison continues, pulling Ruby's attention back to the proposal. Full college scholarships for local students, community development grants, small business loans, infrastructure improvements. The federal government wants to prove that communities can thrive when they have real security. How much money are we talking about? Initial 3-year commitment, $12 million. If successful, expansion to 20 communities nationwide. Wright slides over detailed budget projections. Your director salary would be $85,000 annually, plus benefits, plus profit sharing from community center operations. Ruby stares at the numbers in disbelief. Yesterday, she was facing eviction. Today, she's being offered more money than she'd made in the past 5 years combined. There's one more component, Morrison says quietly. The Ruby Washington Justice Foundation. Private donors, people inspired by your story, have contributed $2.8 million for emergency assistance to witnesses, victims, and community members facing retaliation for doing the right thing. Private donors? Your video went viral worldwide, Ruby, not just the confrontation, but your courage. Agent Carter shows her phone screen filled with donation notifications. Contributions are pouring in from teachers, nurses, small business owners, working families, people who recognize themselves in your story. Ruby feels completely overwhelmed. This is too much. Too big. I'm just someone who runs a diner. No, Morrison says firmly. You're someone who risked everything to protect justice. You're someone who built community trust over 15 years of selfless service. You're someone who proved that ordinary people can stand up to extraordinary corruption. He leans forward with intensity. Ruby, this program will be studied by law enforcement agencies worldwide. If it works here, it could transform how communities protect themselves from organized crime, corruption, and intimidation. Ruby looks around her small diner, imagining it as headquarters for a justice movement that could spread across America. The responsibility feels enormous, but so does the opportunity to honor Jerome's memory. What would my husband think? She whispers. He'd think his wife is about to change the world, Agent Carter replies softly. 6 months later, the transformation of Milfield had become a model that communities across America were desperate to replicate. Before, Ruby's Corner Diner, struggling to serve 12 customers on a busy day. Ruby counted quarters for groceries while Mayor Hayes threatened eviction with predatory developers circling like vultures. After, the Ruby Washington Community Justice Center, a gleaming complex that honors the original diner while expanding into a full community campus. The grand opening draws 2,500 visitors, including federal officials, motorcycle club representatives, and families from 15 states seeking similar programs. National News Segment. Good evening. 6 months ago, a confrontation outside a small-town diner sparked the largest anti-corruption investigation in Georgia history. Tonight, that same diner has become headquarters for a revolutionary approach to community safety that's capturing international attention. The camera pans across the bustling center. The original diner anchors the space, serving 500-plus customers daily, but now it's surrounded by meeting rooms, a community college satellite campus, legal aid offices, and a coordination center where federal agents work alongside motorcycle club liaisons. Corruption case results. The trials concluded with devastating efficiency. Mayor Patricia Hayes, 18 years federal prison. Captain Reese, 15 years federal prison. 14 officers received sentences ranging from 3 to 10 years. 6 cartel operatives got life sentences. $52 million in seized assets returned directly to affected communities. Deputy Director Wright, Department of Justice. The Milfield model has demonstrated that community-based security partnerships can be more effective than traditional law enforcement in preventing corruption and protecting witnesses. We're seeing 89% reduction in corruption complaints across pilot communities. The Ruby Washington Justice Foundation, cut to Milfield High School graduation ceremony. 52 seniors wear special honor cords. Ruby Washington scholars receiving full college scholarships. Unlike traditional programs encouraging students to leave small towns, this foundation emphasizes returning to serve their communities with new skills. Scholarship recipient Maria Santos. 3 years ago, I was doing homework in Mrs. Ruby's diner because my house was too chaotic for studying. Now I'm headed to law school with a commitment to return and work in the community justice program, helping other families navigate the system. Community transformation statistics. The numbers tell an incredible story. Crime reduction, 71% decrease in all categories. Corruption complaints, 0 verified incidents in 6 months. Economic development, 28 new businesses opened, creating 340 permanent jobs. Population growth, 18% increase as families relocate to Milfield seeking the safety and opportunity the program provides. Motorcycle club integration. The most remarkable transformation is social acceptance. Clubs once viewed with suspicion now patrol neighborhoods like friendly guardians, escort children to school safely, provide security for community events, and serve as first responders for domestic violence calls with training from federal experts. Reverend Patricia Johnson. I'll be completely honest. 6 months ago, I would have crossed the street to avoid those motorcycles. Now I call Marcus when we need security for church events. These men and women live by a code of honor that puts some so-called respectable people to shame. Marcus, Hell's Angels president. People think we're outlaws because we don't trust corrupted authority, but Mrs. Ruby proved that some authority deserves trust. We protect her because she protects justice for everyone. National expansion, 6 months later. Similar programs launching in Birmingham, Memphis, Little Rock, Charleston, and New Orleans. Each community selected based on corruption, vulnerability, and presence of honorable community leaders willing to take risks for justice. Detective Tom Morrison, now Deputy Director, Community Justice Initiative. Ruby Washington proved that everyday citizens can be more effective than traditional law enforcement at identifying and stopping corruption. The Milfield model is being studied by communities in 12 countries worldwide. Economic impact data. Federal investment, $12 million across 6 communities. Private donations, $9.4 million and growing daily. Jobs created, 410 full-time positions with benefits. Small businesses supported, 147 community loans approved at below-market rates. Infrastructure improvements, new school wing, medical clinic, community college extension campus. Ruby's reflection. Ruby stands in the center's main hall during the evening shift change, watching the controlled coordination. Federal agents brief motorcycle liaisons, community volunteers coordinate with college students, and families gather for dinner in the expanded restaurant space that still serves Jerome's original recipes. Ruby Washington. Jerome always said this place would be about more than food. It would be about feeding souls, building community, giving people hope for tomorrow. I thought he meant the 12 tables in our little diner. Turns out he was thinking bigger than I ever imagined possible. International attention. The Milfield model has attracted official delegations from Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, and the European Union, all studying how community-based justice partnerships can prevent the corruption that traditional top-down policing sometimes enables. Agent Sarah Carter. What Ruby Washington started with 3 minutes of courage has become a new template for democracy itself. Proof that communities can protect themselves when they have partners they trust and leaders they believe in unconditionally. The camera pulls back to show the full complex. Bustling restaurant, busy meeting rooms, children playing safely in courtyards patrolled by tattooed guardians, and at the center, a bronze statue of a small woman standing up to power. Ordinary courage that changed everything. 1 year later, on the anniversary of the confrontation that started it all, Ruby discovered that some acts of courage echo through generations. 1 year anniversary. Ruby arrives at the Justice Center before dawn, same as every day for 16 years. But today carries special significance. Exactly 1 year since she stepped between corruption and justice, changing both forever. The bronze plaque reads, "In honor of those who choose courage over comfort and justice over convenience." The Ruby Washington Community Justice Center, Est 2025. Ruby still begins each day identically, in the original diner section, brewing the first pot of coffee, ensuring everything is ready for the community she serves. At 6:15 a.m., she hears them again. The familiar rumble of motorcycle engines. This time, it's not just the original 312 bikers. The anniversary ride has become a national pilgrimage. Over 1,200 motorcycles representing clubs from coast to coast, all converging on Milfield to honor not just Ruby's courage, but the principle she represents. Director Morrison enters, removing his helmet. Behind him walks 10-year-old Lily Cooper, his niece, healthy and vibrant. "Miss Ruby," Lily runs to the counter. "Uncle Tom says you're the reason all the bad people went to jail." "No, sweetheart," Ruby corrects gently. "Your uncle spent 18 months being brave so the bad people could be caught. I just helped for one morning." "But that one morning changed everything," Morrison says, settling into his usual booth. "Lily, tell Miss Ruby what you want to be when you grow up." "A community justice director, exactly like Miss Ruby," Lily announces proudly. "Uncle Tom says when bad people try to hurt good people, community justice directors make sure the good people are protected." Ruby's heart swells. "That's a wonderful goal, honey, but remember, you don't need any title to stand up for what's right. You just need courage." The morning rush builds. A mixture of locals, federal agents, motorcycle club members, visiting delegations, and families who've driven hundreds of miles to see where ordinary courage sparked extraordinary change. Agent Carter approaches with final case documents. "Ruby, the last corruption trial concluded yesterday. Captain Reese got 18 years. The entire network is dismantled." "And the other communities?" 9 more cities approved for community justice centers. The model exceeds our most optimistic projections." As Ruby watches the morning energy, federal agents coordinating with bikers, college students interviewing elderly residents, children playing safely in spaces protected by unlikely guardians, she thinks about Jerome's wisdom. "You were right, honey," she whispers to his memory. "This place was always meant to be bigger than we imagined." Carlos Rivera, now 18 and heading to journalism school on a Ruby Washington scholarship, approaches the counter. "Mrs. Ruby, my professor wants to interview you about how social media can amplify justice movements." Ruby laughs. "Tell him I still don't understand half of what happened. I just know that when you see someone who needs help, you help them. Even when it's scary? Especially when it's scary, that's when it matters most." Through the window, Ruby sees the memorial garden where community members planted flowers for every corruption victim, people who couldn't speak up before the Justice Center existed. But she also sees children playing, families gathering, and hope taking root in soil once poisoned by corruption. Ruby Washington's 3 minutes of courage continue rippling outward, proving that ordinary people can change the world, one small act of justice at a time. Ruby's story reminds us that we all carry the power to change history. We just need the courage to use it when it matters most. Ruby Washington thought she was just helping a stranger in trouble. She couldn't have known that her 3 minutes of defiance would dismantle a multi-state corruption network, create a revolutionary justice program, or inspire communities across America to stand up for what's right. But that's the power of choosing courage when everyone else chooses silence, of seeing injustice and refusing to look away, of believing that one person's voice can matter more than a conspiracy's money. Ruby's story isn't special because she's extraordinary. It's special because she chose to act when acting was dangerous, to speak when speaking was costly, to stand when standing was terrifying. Today, corruption exists in your community, too. Someone needs defending. Something needs exposing. Justice needs a voice. You might think you're just one person against impossible odds, but Ruby Washington was just one person, too. What will you choose? What would you do if you witnessed injustice happening right in front of you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Like if this story inspired you to act. Subscribe for more stories of everyday heroes who prove that courage can change everything. Share to remind someone that their voice matters. Because in a world where it's easier to stay silent, we need more Ruby Washingtons. People who prove that ordinary courage can create extraordinary justice.